Hey, Brian Young here. Today's video is on moving into retail arbitrage. So, I highly recommend that you sell books. Obviously, I've laid out the foundation for that over the course of the last 6 modules. I think that there's tons of profitability in used books, like 700% ROI on average, and that there's tons of opportunity because books are like everywhere. You're able to find them in a variety of places. Like I said in a previous video, we live in a town. We live right next to a town that has 100,000 people in it, and I think that I could hire 5 book sourcers to work that town or more. I really feel like the potential for inventory is there to employ up to 5 or more people. The opportunity is there, the profitability is there. There's no reason why you shouldn't get into it, because also it's easy to systematize and outsource as well. But you don't need to stop there. You could make a nice life and a nice business out of just selling books on Amazon, but you can always go somewhere else. And so I'd recommend you set up, automate, outsource your Amazon book selling business. And then if you want to go into, let's say, retail arbitrage, you can. And I think retail arbitrage is a great fit. It's a different animal, so it's different slightly here and there than book selling. It's a little more complex, but it's a good fit because all the lessons that you've learned selling books can be transferred pretty well over to retail arbitrage. But there are a lot of other options too. There's private label, wholesale, exclusive, so setting up exclusive deals with local manufacturers or stores, thrift store arbitrage. You can even get out of Amazon. You could do blogging. You can sell information products, or back into Amazon. You can do online arbitrage. So you're looking for products online. You could become a liquidator, so you're contacting thrift store or contacting stores and liquidating their inventory, or you can go to some of the liquidation sites like 888lots.com and you can order lots from them, or even real estate. And ultimately you can take what you've learned, setting up, automating, systematizing, outsourcing your book selling business. You can apply those to all these different categories. What's been successful for us, the path that we chose, is to go retail arbitrage. So I'm going to share with you some of the pros and cons and tips and tricks regarding retail arbitrage. This will be kind of like an intro video, just to kind of give you a look behind the curtain at our retail arbitrage business. And then if you decide to go that direction, you can. So why retail arbitrage? Again, I think the benefit to this business model that I've been sharing with you is that it provides the opportunity of multiple verticals. So you could do book selling, then take that same model and do retail arbitrage, then take that same model and do online arbitrage and thrift store and liquidation. You can, in essence, have multiple revenue streams and business models coming out of the same business. And you're still, with retail arbitrage, you're still selling physical products on Amazon. There's just a little twist thrown in. So the pros of retail arbitrage: instead of buying one book here, one book there, and scanning through books, you can buy items in volume. So you go to the store using some of the same tactics and strategies that we use to source books. You scan an item. If there's 20 on the shelf, you can put all 20 in your cart. And so sometimes you find that one item and you're able to fill up a shopping cart, as opposed to, one book here and one book there. There's a benefit to that. It requires less work and less processing time to do retail arbitrage, I feel. Now, some people might disagree. And depending on what kind of retail items you're sourcing, there could be more prep involved. But typically, when you're sourcing at a store, you're dealing with brand new, clean products. For the most part, you can just print out a label, cover up the barcode of that product, put it in a box, and ship it to Amazon. You don't need to scrape off labels. You don't need to wash with rubbing alcohol. You don't need to make it look nice. And again, you're scanning one item and you're printing out 20 labels, as opposed to scanning 20 items with 20 different labels. Items typically sell faster. You can tweak your criteria to just focus in on the items that are probably going to sell within the next couple of months. And that's great. So your inventory is coming in and going out. You have a quick turnover. Now, the book selling business model is obviously different. You like those long tail books because they feed into the best sellers that you're also flipping as well. But this way, you're just moving through. You're flipping. You're making your money back. Now, the ROI isn't as good, but you're able to have a nice cash flow, which is essential. And I also think that selling toys, electronics, and groceries is really booming online. I really feel like we're not even at the climax of this yet. So if you're really interested in selling physical products on Amazon, getting into toys, electronics, and groceries specifically, there's some great opportunity there. Now, the cons is these items are going to cost you more up front, whereas a book can cost you like 25, 50 cents to $1, maybe $2. Retail arbitrage items usually cost much more than that. I'd say the average cost of an item is somewhere between $5 and $30, depending on what you're buying. But typically we don't buy products for less than $5 because we want to be able to sell them for at least $15. And I can get into some of the more specifics about that later. There's more liability for things that don't sell. So because items cost more money, if something sits on the shelf for too long, I mean, that's money that you invest. If you spent $10 on an item and that item sits on the shelf for a year, I mean, that's $10 that you could have working for you in your business that's just sitting on the shelf. With books, if you buy 10 books at 25 cents a piece, that's a lot of books, and really only one or two of them would need to sell for you to recoup all your initial expense, and the rest that would sell would just be all pure profit. There's also more FBA competition on the listings. Like if you pull up one of the popular toys, there can be 300, 400, 500 different sellers trying to sell that exact same toy in new condition. Many of them are selling at FBA. When it comes to books, that's not the case. There's not as many. The listings aren't as crowded, and there's definitely not as many FBA sellers. Oftentimes, you're fighting over the buy box with every other FBA sellers and Amazon. I mean, rarely will you have to fight over the buy box with Amazon on some of the older books that we sell. Or if you're selling a book in used condition, Amazon rarely sells books in used condition. They do sometimes. Amazon Warehouse deals well, but it's pretty rare. So if you have a used copy of a book that's competitively priced, typically you don't have to worry about Amazon. And you don't really have to worry about a lot of other FBA sellers either, because there's honestly, there isn't that many. And the products take up more space. So I know you're going to be sending them into Amazon FBA, but it's going to cost you more in shipping because the boxes are going to be bigger and heavier. It's also going to cost you more for storage. And it's only like a couple dollars a year maybe to store a retail arbitrage item there, depending on what size it is. That does add up. And if you're building up a sizable inventory, that is going to be a cost you need to be concerned about. So how do you get started? Well, if you're thinking about getting started in retail arbitrage, these are the steps that I'd recommend to take. Hit the retail stores, go to the clearance section, and start scanning product. So just like books, you're going to need to get comfortable with the market out there. And I just go through, I'm looking for items that have a marked down price of 50% or more, typically, because I want to get around the 70%, 75% off MSRP range. Because then I'm going to be able to sell my product on Amazon for a little less than MSRP while still making a nice profit. Then you want to establish a buying criteria. So after you've done some research, after you've probably bought some products and had some success and had some failure even, you're going to be able to create a buy criteria. Ship items off to Amazon, so put together some shipments yourself just to go through the process. I'd say do that 3 to 4 times and then work on creating a manual. So the idea again is to create a bust-proof retail arbitrage business. And you're going through the same process you did with books. You're doing some on your own. You're putting together a manual, putting together training materials, and then you start bringing on a team. Then after a couple of weeks of doing it yourself, start outsourcing. So you also need to figure out how you're going to do some things, how you're going to compensate people, pay for items. You're going to figure out a weekly budget. Weekly budgets are really important with retail arbitrage because, again, the items cost so much more. With a book, your book sources really can't get that much out of hand because they only have so many hours in the week to do sourcing. But with retail arbitrage, one person go to one store and they can spend $5,000, and maybe you don't have enough money to cover that. You need to take that into consideration. Figure out how much you're going to pay, put your training materials together, hire your first product sourcing specialists, and then train them in and monitor them. We had our first retail arbitrage guy shadow me for a couple weeks. So I went sourcing at a bunch of different stores, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and then he just would shadow me and follow me around. I mean, if you have a good criteria and it's pretty solid and there's not a lot of wiggle room or guesswork that it needs to be involved into buying product, then it's going to be really easy for them to source. It's really going to be really easy for them to learn. So the problem with a lot of online sellers, especially retail arbitragers, is they have this buy criteria in their head, but it's very conceptual and it's never been written down on paper before. By forcing yourself to write it down, you're going to force yourself to really determine on paper what you value in a product and what you don't. And I think it's not only going to be really helpful for you, but it's going to be helpful when you train somebody in as well. And then after that, after you've maybe put together 3 or 4 shipments, outsource that as well. Hire somebody to do the shipping for you. Pay someone to prep, list, label, and ship all your items. Next, you want to hire a shipper. So after you put together 3 or 4 shipments on your own, you want to outsource that as well. Now you're going to be paying somebody to prep, list, label, and ship all of your items. It's really important for you to put together a compensation plan. So figure out how much you're going to pay them. You could see what the 25 cents per item plan would look like. So while you're putting together shipments, think about how you might pay somebody and kind of crunch some numbers. But I would think that 25 cents per item for a retail arbitrage item is going to be too little because they're not going to have as many items as they would retail items as they would books. And the system's going to be a little more tedious. The listing process is going to be different. So try to figure that out along the way. Also, just put together a plan. Again, you want to teach them exactly how to efficiently prepare, list, label, and ship all these items. And so work through that yourself so that you can teach them. And then monitor their progress, just like you would with your book listers. Make sure that they're listing things accurately. Just make a concerted effort to be there, evaluating them and the detail of their work, at least those first couple of weeks.